Hello and welcome to the garden. So I'm looking at my tomatoes and I'm very happy with the plants this year, and somewhat unusually I've allowed these to come up, many of these, in two stems. So there's one big chunky stem here up to this point, and then it naturally split, and usually when that happens I'll cut one out and just keep one stem. But on this occasion I have, for many of these plants, allowed two to come up. They are so robust, and these aren't grafted plants, these are just ordinary plants, but these are like tree trunks. They are really happy, healthy and vigorous this year. But I've just been looking at the fruit, and I think it's not going to be too long before we get the first ones start to ripen. They're not there yet, but there's some good sized fruit. This is going to be lovely when it does ripen. But on some of these you can just see that first hint of colour change in the green here, and I think that means we're not too far away from the first ripe big tomatoes. We've had a few of the cherry tomatoes. They're always much quicker to, I mean, they're quicker to grow to full size, and of course much quicker to ripen. These big fellas, which are the ones I really love, they always take a bit longer, but we're not far away now. So the tomatoes are on their way, and of course that means I'm going to want some basil, and I am taking a shortcut once again. I'm sure at some point in the future I will once again sow my own basil, but that would only be if I want a particular variety of basil. And for general use, there's nothing wrong with supermarket basil. And once again, I'm going to take a few boxes of supermarket basil, split up the plants, drop them in the ground. They are incredibly effective. It works great. The basil's lovely. They will keep us in basil until the end of the season. Now I haven't opened these, but let's have a little look at the plants. They probably need a drop of water, but they're not bad. So I've got three of these large ones, and they vary a little bit depending on where you get them from. This has got a lot of stems in it. You don't normally see quite so many stems as in this pot, but you divide them into clumps of, it can just be 3 or 4 stems, but split this pot up into 4, 5, maybe even 6 little clumps. Depends how it divides. This is not a pretty process. You're not going to be shaking them apart, teasing apart all those roots. You have to be, I think, just a little bit brutal with it, but it will settle down very happily. It never fails. You just divide these clumps up, drop them in the ground, and leave them for, let's say, a week or so to start getting used to it, to put some new roots out, and to sort of recover from the brutal assault that I'm about to make on it. And then you can start pinching out the tops, and that's where the magic happens. So this is awful stuff in its current state. It's all wobbling all over the place. But if you take a stem like that, you don't want to come along and just sort of grab a whole stem and rip it out. But if you pinch them out above a node, then you get 2 side shoots come up, and every time you pinch it out, you get more. And you just keep doing it. Pinch out above a node. Every time you take a stem, you get 2 more. And it's not long before these tiny little clumps are great big bushes of the stuff. And from just a couple of pots, actually, you can keep yourself in fresh basil all year, and with tons spare to make piles of pesto and whatnot. And actually it freezes reasonably well. I'm not so keen on it that way, but my wife likes it. So we still have batches of pesto in the freezer from last season. Lovely stuff. Nothing wrong with this at all, and it's a nice shortcut. I don't have to faff around with sewing the stuff, and yeah, quick and easy. You can see we've got the first ripe cherry tomatoes here, and these plum tomatoes, or I don't know what they are actually, a small plum type. They won't be too far behind, but anyway, I've got space along the front here. Just slide that soaker hose out of the way. Got space along the front to slip in some of these basil plants. Just make a little hole there. Right, let's knock one of these out. They do, you can see, I mean, there's a mass of crazy root. Not really going to be able to deal with that in any sensible way. I mean, it's not very helpful stuff, but I don't like to butcher plants, but for this job, it is a case of just splitting it up as best you can, and then taking off a smaller clump, and there we go. You can't be trying to tease out the individual roots. That would be a nightmare. In fact, I think I'm going to keep that clump together. So in the hole, slightly deeper than it was in the pot, because there's a long length of wombly stem. I don't need all of that, and job done. Perfectly happy. That will need, I mean, it's going to get some water from the soaker hose. I might give it a little drop just to ease its transition there. This compost isn't that damp, but that's it. I'm going to go along here, split off some more, and get it planted. It is quick and easy. And then by the time we get some ripe tomatoes, we should have plenty of new basil to come on. I mean, some of these young ones, they're overcrowded in the pot. It does depend where you buy them, and to be honest, these aren't the best. But some of these little ones, now that they've got more room, they will develop, especially as we start to pinch the bigger ones out. Well, I certainly find that a lot easier than mucking about with all the sowing and pricking out and so on for my own basil plants, and in a matter of minutes I will have the entire polytunnel filled with basil, and it will give us more than we can possibly use for the rest of the season, and it's perfectly nice basil. So yeah, if you're in a hurry, that's the way to do it. But that is all for this video. Thanks ever so much for watching, and bye for now.